Hey everyone, welcome back to my number sense series. In this video, we're going to be doing number counting 2. But if you haven't watched my previous video, number counting 1, please go back and watch that one, as we're going to use something very similar in this video, just a little bit altered. So what is different with number counting 2? Well, with number counting 1, we had cases that were always kind of, I would say, nice. For example, instead of having questions like, how many multiples of 3 are there from 1 to 49, we might have, how many multiples of 3 are there from 3 to 48? And then we could use our formula b minus a over d plus 1, and we would get the answer. However, in number counting 2, and these are the kinds of problems that you'll see more often on the number sense exams, we're not going to have these nice numbers. For example, take a look at this one. How many odd whole numbers are there from 88 to 156? Well, 88 and 156 both aren't odd, so how are we going to know that if we can use b minus a over d plus 1? And indeed, it turns out that when the bounds are not multiples of this number, or this number, or this number, or this, you can't use b minus a over d plus 1, which is why here we're going to use another formula. A formula that's going to look similar, but is slightly altered. We're going to use b minus a over d. And that's it. That's the whole formula. And this is the formula we use when the bounds are not multiples of the number that we are trying to count the multiples of. For example, even whole numbers, this can be translated to multiple of 2. So how many multiples of 2 are there between 1 and 11? What we would do is we would simply say it's 11 minus 1 over 2, and we'd get the answer of 5. So a slightly simplified formula, as you can see. But wait a second. This formula might also provide some complications, right? For example, what if b minus a over d isn't a whole number? For example, what if the question said, how many even whole numbers are there between 1 and 12? Well, then we would have 11 over 2, which is 5.5, and we're not going to have 5.5 numbers. So clearly that is absurd. But there is a thing that may come to some of you as good news and may come to some of you as bad news. Number sense will not allow that to happen. And what I mean is that when you do this subtraction thing, you are always going to get a whole number. When you plug the numbers into this formula, it's always going to be a whole number. And so some of you might say, oh wow, that simplifies my calculations a lot. And some of you might be like, oh, well then what else can we do if it's not a multiple? And for that, I will leave that to you to explore. But just know that for these questions, they're always going to be not that hard. Basically plug and chug questions where you just plug the numbers into the formula, write down the answer. So let's get on with our second question. How many odd whole numbers are there from 88 to 156? Now, I will confess this is a little bit of a weird case. So in number sense, they're going to ask either even, odd, or a multiple of something. Now, odd number doesn't mean a multiple of 2, but in this case, we can treat it as if it does. So we're going to do basically the same thing as we would do if it said even, and we're just going to subtract and divide. So it's 156 minus 88 over 2, and that's going to be 68 over 2, which is 34 odd numbers. And that's how we would do that. Next question, how many multiples of 3 are there from 1 to 49? Once again, we're just going to plug the numbers in, and we're going to get 49 minus 1 over 3 equals 48 over 3 equals, as you know, 16. Once again, these questions are all very mechanical because they are, after all, meant to be done within like 7 seconds in your head theoretically. So yeah, plug and chug. How many multiples of 3 are there from 14 to 68? 14 to 68, once again, that's 68 minus 14 over 3. That's 54 over 3, which is 18. And last question, slightly harder. This is something that you could see in the later groups of number sense. But you know, it's really the same thing as the other problems. How many multiples of 11 are there between 76 and 197? Don't be scared. We're just going to plug it into the formula. And we'll get 197 minus 76 over 11 equals 121 over 11, which is simply 11. So I will admit, number counting 2 is a little bit simplified. It's definitely not as hard as it could be, but honestly that's just because number sense is trying to make the questions easier for you. So as long as you remember, when our bounds are not nice multiples of the numbers that we're trying to find the multiples of, then we'll use b minus a over d. If they are nice multiples, then we'll be using b minus a over d plus 1. That's all we really have to remember. Just gain a bit of familiarity with the formula, and you should be very, very good with this kind of problem. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time. Okay, in case anyone was curious, this is not part of the official video, but if you want to think about this topic a little bit further, you can absolutely watch the snippet, because what I'm about to say might explain some things to some of you. So you might be curious as to why we can't just use b minus a over d plus 1 in this, and I'm going to kind of show you right now. Because if I try to use it, for example here, how many even whole numbers are there between 1 and 11? What I'm actually counting is basically like asking how many even whole numbers are there from 2 to 10, right? That's essentially what I'm doing. And so this is actually 10 minus 2 over 2 plus 1, which is also equal to 5. And so if you wanted to do these questions in a scenario where maybe the bounds, when you subtract the bounds, you don't get a nice multiple, here's what you would do. For example, suppose I changed this problem to how many multiples of 11 are there between, I don't know, maybe 45 and 241. All right, how many multiples of 11 are there between 45 and 241? Well, here's what I'm going to do, right? I'm going to find the least multiple of 11 in here, and then I'm going to find the greatest multiple of 11 here, and then I can use my formula b minus a over d. Because when I do that, first of all, the important thing is that it doesn't get rid of any multiples of 11. I'm just finding the smallest one and the biggest one, and I know all the multiples of 11 are going to be, in this range. And then what that also allows us to do is it gets the bounds in a way where we can actually just use b minus a over d plus 1. So for example, in this problem, I would say the least multiple of 11 in this range is 55. The greatest multiple of 11 in this range is 231. And then I would do my subtraction, b minus a over d plus 1. And what I would get is 176 over 11 plus 1, which is 17. And also notice that if you had actually just tried to do the subtraction by yourself, like using this formula, you would have gotten 196 over 11, which is not a whole number. But if we do a little bit of modification, if we think about the question a little bit more, we can answer questions like these. It just won't be tested on number sense. So for all you curious students out there, I hope that explained it to you. Thanks for watching the bonus segment, and I'll see you next time.